Thank you very much, and thank you. And as someone who has a lot of family members who have been diagnosed with breast cancer and successfully come through the treatment of it, thankfully, it is great news to hear. So thank you, Senator and Minister. Minister, in the minds of parents who don't have a child with special needs or complex needs, such that their child needs to attend a special school, there's a perception out there that special schools have the ability to cater for all of these complex needs. And there's the perception that the schools have staff that are fully trained, fully resourced to manage and to respond to whatever the complexities of the needs of the children, whatever matters arise. And then a parent who has a child with complex needs will probably have that same view. So we come to it with a perception, and they have the expectation that once their child commences their education, they're going to be there right the way throughout their lives, and throughout their education years, and that they will be fully catered for, and nothing that will arise will be a surprise to anyone, that there will be professional resource and trained resource staff there to handle. And in fact, even in the Disability Matters Committee last week, we heard about how there is sometimes a preference of parents to have their child in a special school, even though we mainstreaming and a lack of othering and all of that is also important. So it is a shock to everyone to hear that children with complex needs can be expelled from a special school. And while I don't want to hone in on any one case, this isn't something that we would expect to happen. You know, expulsion in the general understanding is something that comes with a stigma for the child, that they have exhibited or some allegedly deviant behaviour, such as that the school authorities can't countenance having that child in their school anymore. It's a very seriously reputationally damaging status and allegation to make against a child and especially a child who by their very nature is starting out in life, has little life experience, may be liable to make some mistakes and may stray into the wrong company, and that give rise to the matters by which they will be expelled. So that's the stereotype we all have in our heads about an expelled child. But those stereotypes can't be applied to a child with special needs, who by their very nature may exhibit a behaviour that is difficult or challenging, and maybe an expression of frustration or emotion or a method of communication by which professional staff are trained and equipped to deal with. So parents with a child with complex needs where they have been expelled from a special school, then find themselves back on the road of having to find an alternative schooling, and meanwhile that child is being cared for by a parent who maybe isn't trained, who has other responsibilities and who has no respite care. So it isn't hard to see why it's draining, while those parents may feel a sense of abandonment, and despite all that I know has been done by our own department and by Minister Josepha Madigan's department, and I know that the response from Minister Madigan has been really, really good when I've brought these cases to her, but I suppose we need the reassurance, given that these cases do come up not infrequently, that they do come up, that the provision of education for children with acute needs, in light of the context where there have been expulsions from special schools, still occurs, that where the behaviour that led to the expulsion is the very need, or the very manifestation perhaps of why they have complex needs, and so we need to know: are the resources sufficient? Is there sufficient planning? Is the special school setting? Is there enough in there? Is there enough training? And if there are deficits, what plan do we have to campaign and to combat that? Thank you, Minister.
And at the outset, can I just offer apologies for Minister Madigan? I thank the Senator for raising this matter. Enabling students with special educational needs to receive an education is a priority for this government. The policy of the Department of Education is that students with special needs should be included where possible and appropriate in mainstream placements with additional supports provided. Where students require more specialised interventions, a continuum of education provision extends to include access to special school or special class places, as you've said. This continuum is consistent with the Education for Persons with Special Educational Needs Act. There are extensive supports in place in terms of additional teachers and SNAs to support students across the continuum of provision. The level of investment in special education at almost €2 billion is at an all-time high. As a result, the number of special education teachers, SNAs and special classes and special school places are at unprecedented levels. An additional 269 additional special classes opened this school year, bringing the total number of special classes nationally to 2,118. The new classes provide 1,600 additional places spread throughout the country. 124 special schools provide specialist education for approximately 8,000 students annually. The department has also established 2 new special schools in Cork and Dublin, which are now open for the 2021-22 school year, which I know everybody will welcome. These schools provide specialist educational services for students who have the most severe or complex levels of disabilities or special educational needs. The Senator may also be aware that Minister Foley and Minister Madigan recently launched guidelines on the use of reduced school days. These guidelines aim to ensure that the use of reduced school days is limited solely to those circumstances where it is absolutely necessary. There has been developed following consultation with the relevant educational partners and given direction to school authorities on the process to be followed where the use of reduced school days is under consideration for a pupil. I should also state that Section 29 of the Education Act 2018 allows for appeals against the decision of a board of management of a school to suspend or permanently exclude a student. That's to the point that you were making. This is a necessary provision to safeguard the rights of all children in a school. In accordance with the Education Welfare Act 2000, Section 24(4), a student shall not be expelled from a school before the passing of 20 school days following the receipt of a notification under this section by an educational welfare officer. This section of the Act provides for the educational welfare officer to convene a meeting with the school and the parents and any other persons as agreed to attend to make reasonable efforts to ensure that provision is made for the continued education of the student to whom the notification relates. When a student is expelled, Section 29 of the Education Act 1998 provides for an appeal where a board of management or a person acting on behalf of the board of management, normally the school principal, expels a student. To make an appeal, a parent, guardian or the pupil, if the pupil is over 18 years, must complete the Section 29 appeal form for expulsion or suspension. The department does not hold the details on the number of children expelled from school and would only have details on the number of appeals taken under Section 29 in respect of expulsions. Since November 2020, there has been 32 appeals received in respect of expulsions from school. Through the work of the educational welfare officers and the special educational needs organisers, support is available for both the school and the parents at a local level. In conclusion, I want to thank Senator Seery Kearney for giving me the opportunity to address this issue.
Appreciate that expenditure is at an all-time high, and I think the creation of a minister that is specially dedicated to special education and inclusion is I suppose a flag bearer for us for a government that this is something that is a really big priority to us. I suppose it would be a surprise that the number is as high as 32. You know, that's even beyond what I thought it was. I was thinking in the early 20s, and that is. But I acknowledge the creation of a school in my own home constituency of Dublin South Central. So I do appreciate that. I think that we clearly have set out guidelines, we've clearly set out our dedication to these children. It's important now that we oversee it and enforce it and make sure that the children are at the centre of every decision that's made. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator. So just to conclude, the Department is very aware of the educational needs of all children and of the need to ensure that appropriate supports are identified and available to each school where concerns about individual students are identified. The level of investment now in place ensures that these supports are available. But look, I'll bring your concerns back to the Minister and you may be able to talk to her yourself in person.
Thank you.